There are many different ways to refine chocolate, but the vast majority of you, from craft to industrial, are using one of four equipment types: roll refiners, melangers, or stone mills, ball mills, or universal mills. Each one has different requirements for how your formula needs to be composed in order to process successfully. Atlas lets you select your refining method right on the formulation page, and then provides real-time guidance tailored to that equipment. Let me show you how it works. We're going to start with a 72% dark chocolate formula that has already been built. And by default, when we build a formula, it will set itself to industrial style production, meaning refiner. When a refiner is selected, it's going to show you a fat refining table that lets you calculate and model how much cocoa butter needs to be in or out of your total fat in order to achieve certain target mixing fat or refining fat percentages. The split is crucial for roll refiners because the fat level during refining directly affects a great deal of things. This is very, very important for roll refining production. But most of you are not using roll refiners. You're using melangers or in some cases ball mills. So let's progress along this and select a melanger and stone mill. Watch what happens below. When I click on melanger or stone mill, we can see that this section changed. This is the tool that most craft chocolate makers will use. It uses a color-coded status. Right now it reads optimal for melanger in green. It's assessing things like your raw materials, your fat level, your particle size. It's looking at how you've built your formula and what you built it with to determine how likely this is going to work in this type of equipment. We're going to come back to this because there's some more detail here I want to walk you through. But let's keep moving on our refining equipment and select ball mill. When I click on that, it's going to show a risk assessment bar with your formula's likelihood of success plotted on it. Ball mills have a wider optimal range. Sort of most of them are happiest in the 35 to 55% fat range, and that is predominantly because that creates a viscosity that a ball mill is happy with. But there's lots of reasons why ball mills are have a wider range than melangers. But they're sensitive to viscosity in different ways. Too thick, and you're going to overstress your motor and generate a lot of heat, which is going to cause you some durability problems and some flavor problems. Too thin, and the mill is going to act more like almost like a mixer than a grinder. It's going to push your material around and not be very efficient in how it's reducing its particle size, which is the whole reason you want to use a ball mill in the first place, is to reduce your particle size. And then finally, we've got something called the universal mill. Sometimes they're called McIntyres because that's a brand name that initiated them. But today there's lots and lots of versions of these. This one's different because their primary concern isn't only the fat percentage. It cares a great deal about the temperature of your ingredients and your order of addition and your feed preparation. Universal mills are refiners. They're not primary grinders. So the guidelines here, and we'll look at guidelines in a bit, focus more on feed order and temperature zones and the critical requirements to pre-grind your nibs into liquor before feeding. If we just click on that, you'll see that expands the section. We're not going to look at that in detail right now. Each method has its own expandable guidelines section with detailed technical guidance. Let me go deeper on the melanger and show you how this actually steers your formulation. So 3 things to notice here. First, there's a status badge. It tells you at a glance whether this formula is likely to process well or not. And so green means optimal, and it says optimal right here. You'll also see amber for marginal and red for unlikely to work. And we're going to look at some examples of what that looks like in a second here. Second, there's an estimated refining time or estimated processing time, because there's so many different types of melanges and such a wide range of ingredients, it's not possible to create a tool that's accurate for them all out of the box. There's just too much variation out there. So what Atlas is going to do is it's going to learn your ingredients and your equipment. It's going to estimate your cycle time by assessing your chosen ingredients and type. So depending on what you put in here is going to affect what comes out here. It's going to estimate this time by assessing those ingredients, your fat level, your particle size. And so again, as you design your product down here and you tell it more about what you're trying to achieve, your particle size, for example, it's going to improve upon itself the more you use it. And so right now it believes, based on what you've told it, it's going to take about 32 hours for this formula with your ingredients and your equipment to reach completion. And then once it actually does reach completion, you tell it how long it took to actually reach completion, what your particle size actually was, and it's going to use that information to learn from itself. If we hover over this, and this is a confidence indicator. So right now we've run 4 batches, which gives it medium confidence in this estimated time. And if I hover over this, it's going to tell us more about what it's doing and how it's doing it. The more batches you run and the more precise you are in telling it down here in the specification and test results section, what you're trying to achieve and what you actually achieve, you'll see this migrate from low to medium to high to very, very high as it learns your exact equipment and learns your exact raw materials. After about 10 batches, it becomes really very, very precise. The last thing I want to show you here is the guidelines section. So let me scroll up and we'll take a peek here. This is where the real value is for someone developing formulas who's just getting started. Below for 28% fat, most of these machines just aren't likely to work. They're likely to seize. You're going to get a wet sand texture. Your motor's probably going to burn out. And as we increase our fat level, we're going to, as we go from 28 to 34, generally speaking, the equipments are going to start to get heavier. We go to 35 to 40. This is where pretty much all of the melanges, regardless of who's making them, are really going to be the happiest. And then as you start to go over the hill and you go much higher in fat, you're going to start to degrade your performance again. And so you're going to get splashing. You're going to get again pushing around of your particles instead of grinding them. And above 50%, frankly, you're just wasting cocoa butter with diminishing returns. It's not to say that you can't process low or high fat products on melanges. Again, there's just a huge range of different types of melanges out there, but this is meant to help you identify very quickly where there may be areas of concern if you're unfamiliar with the limits of your equipment, to help you avoid making costly mistakes. And then we've also got some optimization tips and some critical warnings down here. These are going to call out things for low-fat formulas, milk chocolate considerations, critical considerations such as never adding water-based ingredients. And that's not a melanger-specific tip. And generally speaking, oil and water does not mix. We do our best to keep as much moisture out of our chocolate formulations in our equipment as possible. So let me show you what happens when we go to a formula that's likely to cause problems. That was a formula that was likely to run really, really well. But if I've created a formula that has a lower percent fat in it, in this example, I know it says 25%, but down here it's actually 26%. It doesn't really matter. This is a formula that isn't likely to work on most equipment. So this is an example milk chocolate I put together. You can see the percentages here. Atlas is going to tell us immediately, while we've got a melanger refining method selected, this is pretty unlikely to work. The status is red. If you try to run this on a melanger, the chocolate's going to be so thick, it's just not likely to flow around your stones. I suppose if you put a large enough motor on there, you could probably get it to work, but for the vast, vast majority of you, this is going to be a good example of a formula that is just probably not something you want to try. If I switch to a ball mill, essentially it's going to tell us the same thing. The markers in the red, this is below where most ball milling manufacturers are going to suggest that you run. There are instances and there are ways to run 26% fat products on a ball mill. It's going to require some specialized knowledge and some specialized training. Again, this is meant to help you avoid some costly production mistakes. It's not to say that you can't do it, but it's going to call out some danger zones ahead of time so that you're not making costly production mistakes. So let's say we built this formula. It's telling us it's red. We're not very happy with it. What do we do with this? How do we fix this? Let's start to modify this formula and then watch what happens down here as I type. So let's change our cocoa butter from 3 to 10. Immediately this changed, right? Now we've moved into sort of a yellow zone where it's saying you can do it, but you're probably going to need to pay a little bit more attention to it. But our total percentage is now too high, right? We added more cocoa butter. We didn't take away from anything else. And so I'm going to take this out of our sugar so that we have a formula that resets back to 100%, make that 34.5. Yep. Okay. So we're at 100% and we're in the yellow. I'm still not very happy with this. I probably want to continue to evolve this formula until I get it into the green, which means I'm going to add some more cocoa butter to it. So let me make this 12. Yep, now we're green. Same problem as before. We are more than 100%. So I'm going to take 2% out of my sugar. We are now at 100%. We are in the optimal viscosity range. And we have every reason to believe that with these ingredients and this fat level, that on a ball mill, or if I switch over to Melanger, which again is green, that this is likely to be a formula that our equipment's going to be satisfied with. That's the power of this tool. You're not finding out on the fly on the production floor that your formulation won't run. You're catching it during development, and Atlas will tell you exactly what needs to be adjusted. So guys, that's the refining method selector for equipment types, each with its own formulation assistant, real-time feedback as you build, detailed technical guidelines that you can expand at any time. The key insight is that the same formula can be perfectly fine for one piece of equipment and completely unreliable or unworkable on another piece of equipment. Atlas is going to help you design for your equipment from the very first ingredient. As you record your actual batch results, the Melanger time estimate is going to get smarter and learn from your own production data, which is going to help you manage your throughputs more effectively.